All right, it seems that people are asking about audio stuff. Should be just coming through your computer speakers or headphones if you plug them in. But we're going to go ahead and get started here. Thank you, everybody, for taking time and joining us today. Our guests today, we have Jeff Rawlinson, Aaron Hershberger, and Micaela Rahe from Nebraska Game Parks. And they're going to kind of talk to us about some of the first steps that they've been doing to start implementing the national plan. They've come across some really good insights that they'd like to share. And yeah, without further ado, I'm going to let these guys take it away. They got a good presentation here. Please ask all your questions on the lower right-hand side in the chat. After their presentation, I'll go through and I'll ask them their question or all your questions, and they'll answer them as best they can. And the ones we don't get to, we'll try and send them out afterwards. So great. Without further ado, here we go. Take it away, guys.
All right. Well, thanks, Marty. You kind of stole my thunder. Micaela and Jeff only gave me one or two slides to talk about today, and one of them was the introduction. But real quick, from left to right across your computer screen, we've got the always boisterous Jeff Rawlinson, one of our assistant chiefs in our communication divisions, overseeing R3 shooting sports. All the good stuff that is outdoor education. Right in the middle, we've got Micaela Rahe, and if you haven't met this young lady yet, guys and gals, you need to. She's our new R3 coordinator for the state of Nebraska, shared position between not only the Game and Parks here with the state agency, but also the National Wild Turkey Federation, but she's working with and for a lot of other partners that you'll see here in just a bit. And then just a little old me, Aaron Hershberger, outdoor education specialist, hunting and shooting outreach coordinator for the state of Nebraska. And what we're going to do real fast is give you the bullet points, the down and dirty about what we're doing here at the Nebraska level with the national R3 plan, getting it into action, making things happen, and just kind of the initial things that we use to kick it off with. And going to be plenty of questions, I know. Going to be a lot of hopefully good conversation spurred on by this, so we'll get right into it.
Thanks, Hershey. This is Jeff. And I want to talk briefly about some of the things we've done to implement or put ourselves in good standing for implementing the National R3 plan, because putting a state agency in preparation, or getting your agency in preparation and your partnerships in preparation for implementing the plan is very key. In fact, such a great importance that in the National R3 plan, immediate recommendations were outlined for all organizations and stakeholders to review and understand prior to implementing the plan. For this, some of these come back to several years ago, Nebraska, and to about 7 years ago, we implemented the development of a 20-year hunter-angler shooting sports recruitment, development, retention plan. That came off the heels of a commission resolution that we would implement such a plan, and that all individuals within the Nebraska Game and Parks Commission would have a active role in R3, or at the time RDR, recruitment, development, and retention efforts. That was very important for us in developing that plan, which is very program focused and in terms of different RDR or recruitment, retention, reactivation, R3 programs that were needed in Nebraska, and how we would go about measuring those. Since that time, we've done a lot of work with training staff. We've had Matt Dunphy to the great state of Nebraska a couple times to not only host training for our staff, but also he was part of a first R3 summit, if you will, and we'll explain a little bit more about that later. And then, of course, we've done ongoing training with our staff. As of a couple of years ago, our director also made it very clear that in Nebraska, all staff would be involved in such programming, as to even go as far as to create an online program by which staff can log their hours as requirements in the state of Nebraska Game and Parks Commission to support such efforts, which is a really cool step forward. I mean, we're really proud of that. And so, setting the baseline of our R3 training and our work prior to the national plan put us in good stead for moving forward with the immediate recommendations, which I think we've done a pretty good job of implementing here in the state of Nebraska over the last 1 to 2 years. So from that training aspect, and as part of the immediate recommendations also that's important to us, was the R3 scorecard, or the data mining effort, if you will. We see this as very important because R3 stakeholders, and ourselves including, have found it very difficult to measure and evaluate efforts on the ground in real-time information. And so we're working closely with our partnership with the University of Nebraska and our staff and our wildlife division to implement a large data mining project that, when complete, will leave us with a dashboard, if you will, so we can look at real-time data as to license buyers, conversion rates across the state, male, female information, age distribution, buying habits, and whatnot, that will help R3 practitioners like ourselves better understand the impacts of our programming targets that we may not be aware of today, and how to move some of those efforts forward in a more targeted fashion, if you will. Also, within those immediate recommendations that were critical, and I think would be critical for any state agency wanting to move forward with the national R3 plan, was hiring a Nebraska coordinator. There were several in our agency involved, from multiple divisions involved in working in R3 efforts, but we've lacked a person to kind of bring it all together. And this year, that became a reality for us in a partnership with the National Wild Turkey Federation. This could not, and I repeat, this could not have gone any better for us. Certainly the Turkey Federation is an incredible, outstanding partner in the R3 effort, certainly a national leader in this effort. And this partnership role has already produced a lot of fruit, good fruit for us here in Nebraska. Micaela has been outstanding. If I had to summarize her position, she's a conduit for collaboration, and that's a term that Jared McJunkin of the Turkey Federation had coined, and I couldn't be more in agreement there. But she's helping with the collaboration efforts of our stakeholders, particularly our closest partners, and expanding that out to some of our broader partners, our more maybe less traditional partners as well. But this is also something that, through a series of meetings and discussions, came from our partners, Pheasants Forever, Turkey Federation, Ducks Unlimited, that we need greater collaboration, and we need kind of that pin that kind of binds us all together and helps us with our collaboration efforts. Micaela's been involved in assessing the gaps in our current programs. That's also in line with the National R3 plan as one of the steps that needs to be taken, so we better understand where our programs are today in terms of the recreational, the hunter adoption model, and where those gaps exist, so that we can start attacking some of those gaps. Developing tools for enhancing the identification of potential participants. We're trying to expand our participant reach, and certainly reaching participants that today may not be the same focus that we had 10 years ago, as we narrow our focus to a participant or a person that we feel represents the greatest opportunity to move the needle on the dial. And then, of course, data matrix, maintain the data matrix and monitoring of data here in Nebraska, to have somebody who's that clearinghouse to make sure that we're constantly monitoring that dashboard and what it can provide for us.
So now we kind of get down into how we're moving this forward. We get into the Nebraska R3 Task Force. And as you can see on the slide in front of you, it kind of got started in 2014, but as Jeff just alluded to, this was something years in the making, to say the least. We engaged a lot of our go-to partners on what was happening in our 20-year recruitment, development, and retention plan of hunters and anglers. We talked to them about what was happening nationally and seeing what was going on and successful in other states. Not just our go-to partners in some instances. Sometimes it was the non-traditional partners that we looked to establish as well. But this group actually got going, like it says, 2014 there, and we really keyed in on the folks that we knew we had to have at the table, that we just saw as, pivotal in the success of R3 here in the state of Nebraska. So we started mainly with those NGOs, as we like to call them, Pheasants Forever, Ducks Unlimited, and National Wild Turkey Federation, and kind of grew from there. Our early meetings dealt with communication, kind of an inventory of what everybody was doing, and kind of an introspective look at what type of outreach programs, mentor hunts, adult outreach programs, things like that took place. Now, we figured out pretty fast that we need to expand, and moving forward, we know that we're going to have to expand a little bit more. On that slide in front of you, it also talks about the goals of the task force that they developed for themselves. One of the biggest ones is right there in the middle, direct R3 efforts in Nebraska. We know that they have access to some of the best boots on the ground, so to speak, to put the wheels onto the national plan as we step it down here into the state of Nebraska. And again, this is kind of the strike force. This is that small group of guys and gals that are really kind of directing it, and then we expand from there. Obviously, we've done a lot of mapping already of the programs. We'll talk about that here in just a bit. We talked about our recruitment paths through the Wildlife Management Institute mapping programs and objectives and all that good stuff, but we just wanted to keep everyone apprised of that situation as we moved forward. So you can take a peek at this next slide on what we talked about at our most recent task force meeting, and basically what it comes down to is being our third real go-to meeting, and we're going to start getting them together a little bit more. It's that step down of the national plan. Yes, we do review what's going on. We talk about some of the numbers that they all need to know and have in front of them, but also the expansion of it and who we need to partner with out there. Industry has been able to join us, and we expect that to get bigger. We're starting to look at those that are focused more on shooting sports with the 4-H coordinator here in the state of Nebraska. We'll talk a little bit more about that as we get further into the presentation, but that step down of the national plan, making those items actionable, is what we're really looking at. And this last time, one of the big go-to things was taking the indirect threats and creating very specific subcommittees to address those situations, to look at those strategies of what we identified as the top 4, the foundational R3 indirect threats here in Nebraska, and getting some wheels on those so we can start moving those forward, start seeing the actions, and how we measure the success of those, how we evaluate those, and making sure that we've got it going in the right direction. That we're not just doing stuff, but we're doing the right stuff out there as well. So we can talk a little bit more about that as we move forward, but I know that you guys are dying to hear Micaela talk finally, who's making this all happen, because communication is huge.
All right, well, like Jeff and Aaron mentioned, one of the things I first started doing when I came on board in August was learning about all the programs offered through the variety of NGOs and Nebraska Game Parks in the state of Nebraska. And as I started learning about all those programs, I began to document them with the hunter adoption model and where they fall in recruitment, retention, or reactivation. So on this slide, you can just see an example of the programs that I was documenting for the National Wild Turkey Federation. And here in Nebraska, 2 of the primary programs are the Jake's Take Aim and Women in the Outdoors. You'll see that the programs are broken down with 2 different colored arrows. One represents shooting sports and the other represents hunting, because we did feel like those could fall differently on the hunter adoption model. And then after we modeled the programs for the Turkey Federation, we noticed that the 2 programs they had were really heavy on the recruitment side of things. So we wanted to take a little bit of action and decide what we could do to progress people through the hunter adoption model and start putting some retention programs on the map. So you'll see here, just since August, the Turkey Federation is piloting 2 different programs right now, one being a recruitment program and one being a retention program. I think it was super helpful for me as a new R3 coordinator to come in and talk to all the NGOs and game and parks to learn about the programs and then place them on the map. I'd really recommend this for anyone new to R3 and working with a variety of organizations, because it allowed me time to sit down and visit with the NGOs and to learn about their programs. And it helped me find out how the different programs fit, because no matter if a program's offered through NWTF, Pheasants Forever, Ducks Unlimited, they're all just pieces to that puzzle, and we can put those pieces together as a team and start connecting the different programs. So I'd highly recommend that everybody go through and start evaluating the programs that are there, placing them on the hunter adoption model, and then seeing what's missing, what new things can you add. So that's what I did when it first came to mapping the programs. Along with mapping the programs, a big part of my job was learning more about the National R3 Plan. And one of the big tasks for Nebraska was prioritizing the indirect threats with the National R3 Plan. And I worked with a team of 6 different individuals here at Nebraska Game Parks where we went through and ranked every indirect threat as well as all the strategies within the plan. Although it was time consuming, it was well worth it. We're well versed on the plan now. We know a lot of what each indirect threat consists of. But essentially after going through all the plans, we realized that maybe a ranking system wasn't best for us because we didn't think that one threat was more important than the other. We just thought that you had to do one thing to build upon it and move on to another indirect threat. So you'll notice that we categorize the indirect threats into 4 different categories, being the foundational, expansion, refinement, and maintenance threats. Essentially, we took the foundational threats, which there were 4 of them, to the task force, and the task force created committees based off of their interests to start acting on these indirect threats and going through the strategies that fell in between each indirect threat. So for Nebraska, the foundational threats that we deemed most important for our state was the lack of instructors and mentors and coaches, the lack of an established R3 community, lack of individual process connectivity, and the lack of convenient and quality places to hunt. Since our first task force meeting, since I came on board in November, these 4 subcommittees are now going to meet and come up with a plan of how can we create strategies and steps to start working towards these indirect threats. The committees will then share at the next task force meeting in February the quote-unquote plan they came up with, and we'll continue to hone in on these indirect threats and figure out what we can do to tackle these. There's no timeline on the foundational threats. We'll work on them until they're complete, and then we'll move on to the rest of the threats down the road. We realize that some of the foundation, expansion, refinement, and maintenance threats might overlap each other down the road, but these are what we need to focus on to get started at least, and then we'll move forward from there. So with that being said, part of working with the indirect threats and part of my position is expanding to some of the non-traditional partners in the state of Nebraska. I provided just a couple different examples here, but I'm working with a lot of non-traditional partners right now. I can kind of go through some of these examples, but the first non-traditional partner is we're working with one of the public schools here in the state of Nebraska to offer hunter education over the course of an entire semester for their middle school students. This particular public school offers life skill courses during their last period of every day, and Hunter Ed is a great example of a life skill, something they can use down the road, carry with them. So that's an example of creating a partnership. Another kind of neat one is we have 2 large metro areas in the state of Nebraska, and we're working with the Boys and Girls Clubs of both Lincoln and Omaha to add an outdoor skills club to their list of programming. We have a curriculum here in Nebraska of different outdoor skills, and the Boys and Girls Club is going to take that curriculum and to implement it into their club, and they'll have a staff member teach a variety of different lessons, and then the youth can join for, maybe a 4, a 6, or even an 8-week program. We're hoping that the Boys and Girls Club and the Beatrice Public Schools will both kick off here in the spring. Another unique partnership we've been working on is through the YMCA here in Nebraska. Out in the western portion of our state, we've developed an outdoor discovery program for both youth and adults that belong to the YMCA and their community, and we'll be offering 1 programming class a month, and people can come and learn about the different outdoor skills that there are to learn about. So it could be anything from learning how to use a wild game call, cooking wild game, kayaking, fishing, and then pending the number of activities they go to, they'll also get to participate in a mentored hunt, hopefully this spring. The YMCA program will span a course of 12 months, so 1 program a month, and then we'll welcome new people to join, and hopefully this will model a club. Essentially, the same people are going to come over and over again. They're going to learn a bunch of different skills, hone in on their skills as the years go on, but also invite new people to join their club and become interested in outdoor sports. So some other programs or other non-traditional partners that I'm working with right now would also be Big Brothers and Big Sisters, where not that this is a non-traditional partner, but we're collaborating more with Nebraska 4-H. So those are just a couple examples of where I've gone with the non-traditional partner side of things. So some of you might be wondering, what now? Where's Nebraska going to go from here? And we have a number of different things that we want to do. And obviously one of the first ones is to continue to implement the immediate recommendations. I'm sure most of you are familiar with the immediate recommendations, but we want to work our way through those. I still have a lot of learning to do from our partners around the table, and so I'm still going to take this time to continue to gather wisdom and a lot of resources from our different partners and to work and learn from them. Along with partners and going through the indirect threats, there's going to be a lot of focus on defining our resources. What do we need to tackle these indirect threats, and who do we need on our team to tackle these indirect threats, which might mean bringing more partners to the table. We're super excited about bringing more partners to the table, specifically maybe adding some more members from industry. That's going to be a huge thing moving forward in these next 6 to 12 months, is to get a solid team put together. And then continue to prioritize the national R3 strategies within each indirect threat to create actionable items, which essentially is what these subcommittees are doing since our first task force meeting. And that's going to take a lot of work as well, but we're going to get a solid plan put together and really start putting some feet on the ground and working on these indirect threats. So that's where we're going to go from here. Are there any questions? It looks like there might be some.
Yeah, so everybody please ask questions off onto the right on the chat. We'll start off with one question that Jennifer Mauser has. She wants to know, is Nebraska no longer implementing explore bow hunting?
No, Nebraska is still involved with explore bow hunting. We have a person within our agency, Christy Christensen, who has been taking the lead on that, and so that's still a part of our programming, especially now at some of our education centers that we've developed across the state that are at our state parks that have hunting, shooting sports, education complexes, and it fits very well within some of these centers.
Great. Tom Decker asks, how will you track the people who take these programs at Boys and Girls Club, for example, out into the future and to track their effectiveness?
Yeah, so Boys and Girls Club, essentially they have their members, what's the word I'm looking for? They have their members join a particular club, so maybe they join the Outdoor Skills Club, and then we'll work with Boys and Girls Club to share a list of names. Boys and Girls Club is a little bit harder to work with. Those students won't be quite as easy to share names as what the YMCA and Big Brothers and Big Sisters would be, but this is a first step in reaching a new demographic, maybe some youth who haven't had a chance to participate in outdoor sports or have that support system behind them, and it's definitely something we're looking towards at the future. But right now, Big Brothers, Big Sisters, and the YMCA will be much easier to track.
Nice. And then what advice do you have about approaching schools to offer hunter education or those kind of related programs? Have you done much work with schools in particular?
You know, we haven't in Nebraska. We've done some, and we've had some successes. And my advice would be starting with those champions that you know are in the school systems and finding those classes or programs, if you will, where it can fit very well. Life skills programs, ag education programs, and figuring out where it can be the most valuable to teachers in those arenas, and then working with those groups. That's been some of the success we've had in Nebraska, as well as finding those champions. And everybody in their states collectively knows of those folks who have a very good profile position in physical education, life skill program, ag education programs that can and are hunter ed instructors. And that'd be my first start, and that's been some of our effort here in Nebraska.
Great. Doug Burt wants to know, does Nebraska have the ability to track participants from program to program through license sales or other customer transactions?
We do have some of that ability to track to license sales. The thing we're struggling with right now, and that we are looking for some resolution to help support is tracking, obviously, from the program stage to the permit stage. Right now, our point of sale system allows us to very easily track those people in our permits database, but to make that leap from those who, especially youth, that's our struggle right now, and we're looking for ways to overcome that, but we don't have that problem resolved completely.
Lacey wants to know, when you reached out to NGO partners, did you choose just those that were interested in hunting and fishing and outdoor recreation in general, or did you reach out to just random kind of groups that maybe not have anything to do with it yet?
At first, we definitely went with the ones we had the most in common with as far as, mission or objectives. And I think as we move forward, I think you're going to see us expand to a lot of those that might not have been engaged in this process to this point. I think that you're going to see a lot more NGOs that aren't necessarily just hunting or even perhaps conservation related. I think that we're going to allow some of these folks to decide what the best benefit is to them in getting youngsters and adults out into the field and outdoors, whether that be time with family, whether that be a healthy lifestyle or what have you. So, yep, we started there just because we knew it and we needed their buy-in first, and we've got that, and now it's the expansion.
And I guess
let me just reiterate on that is how important that step is. We have stakeholders within our partnership base that are as motivated as any group could be, and those were the groups that we knew reaching first could provide us the greatest traction moving forward, and now that group is helping to direct who else we need to reach out to. And I can tell you right now, working through our partners, that list is a lot different looking than if we would have just tackled that list by ourselves, which is a very good thing because we're learning of a lot of new partners that potentially could become big stakeholders in this effort.
Great. Can you guys describe the steps it took to get the rest of your agency on board with R3 efforts?
That started many years ago. In one of the slides I discussed, one of the efforts that was undertaken about 7 or 8 years ago, a resolution by our Board of Commissioners that made the R3 effort a very important effort, not just to the groups within our agency that are working on it, but to all commission employees, and helped everybody see the relevance and certainly the need for these efforts. So that started many years ago, and then of course along the lines of the development of our 20-year recruitment development retention plan. More recently, that's a culture issue within state fish and wildlife agencies. And more recently, our director helped tackle that even more so by making it a part of the culture in this agency for years to come, as every commission employee is expected to have some involvement, some hours logged toward helping with these efforts. We even went as far as to create an online program that commission employees could put their R3 or input their R3 programs or outreach programs into our program, online program, and then commission staff can sign up to help, and it outlines what specific positions are needed for that particular program or event or activity, and it allows commission employees not only to find out what is needed throughout the state, but also to even log their hours is involvement within these efforts. And I can tell you today, these types of programs agency-wide are something that all agency staff are aware of, know about, and support. In fact, the line between who's responsible and working on these efforts and who isn't gets even more gray every day thanks to some of those efforts.
Great. Martin wants to know, what is the minimum age needed to buy a fishing license? We struggle with outreach efforts to track participants since they do not need to buy a license until age 14. It is difficult to see results for youth programs in the license database, especially since it's hard to track kids. Any advice you guys have?
Well, one of the things we've done over the years to help with that gap, because he outlines a very real issue, and that's part of the problem that I alluded to earlier with our tracking, is certainly an adult fairly easy to track. Youth that don't have to show up in our system legally for several years, much more difficult. And so some of the things we've done to evaluate at the moment is take information down, evaluate at the moment of the program. If the program was to move their desire to continue on, did we move them to the next step? Are they interested in that next step on the recruitment pathway? What we're struggling with today, and I would say struggle, but what we're focusing on now today is to make sure that immediate next opportunity is available across the board to these participants. And that's kind of what our new R3 efforts, one of the major focus areas with our new R3 efforts will focus on. We're not interested in Nebraska in creating a lot of new programs. However, if a gap exists that we have no answer for, then we're certainly not opposed to that. But right now, we're more interested in finding those gaps and then finding partner programs, our efforts that maybe could be tweaked a little bit to continue to provide that pipeline or that pathway for those individuals.
I also just a real quick add is that our fisheries outreach has done a really good job of not just necessarily going after just the youth angler, but the family or that kind of home unit, if you will, so that it might be tough to track that youngster for a little while, but if we can track mom or dad or both and make some implications from there, from what Jeff was talking about on the site, evaluation work and survey work, then we can kind of move that forward as well.
Jamie and Clark kind of want to know a little bit more about Micaela's position. So what was the process of bringing her on? And then just what does her position entail, and how does it work between you guys and NWTF, and just kind of how that all works?
Sure. The process started probably several years ago in discussing the needs here in Nebraska. We had created quite a bit of the need for the position already. We just didn't have the position. The Turkey Federation brought forth a unique way for us to work together that allowed us to have that position and utilize federal funding to support the effort. And it's been a great partnership ever since then. Jared McJunkin and I started a conversation a couple of years ago on, dreaming about, well, if we could do something, what if and how would we? And I will never sell out the idea that dreaming is important, folks, because you can't get it done if you don't start dreaming ahead of time. And this position was certainly along those lines. Both Jared and our agency kept that focus in mind, and when we were able to put the pieces together, we moved on it and did so, certainly with quite a bit of support from our administration and certainly that from the Turkey Federation. So the first steps after we'd agreed that this is the direction we would like to go, we had already highlighted a lot of the needs. So we sat down and highlighted how this position would address those needs, and started with a kind of a mock position description, and finalized that position description from there, and then collectively worked through the Turkey Federation to advertise and get this person on the ground. Unique partnership, not so unique for state fish and wildlife agencies and NGOs. We work together with similar positions in the habitat realm quite often, but a unique position in the R3 effort, and one that's proving right away here in Nebraska to be a hit, to be a pretty good success. So my opinion, my focus would be highlighting on those needs that you have, and don't be so quick to say that's what we need right away. Figure out what the needs are in your state and how your partners can work together to address those needs. And if the position is what's absolutely necessary for you to move forward with, take those needs and put those into a description as to how this position would address those needs, and certainly move forward with your administrations to start having those discussions.
What have you guys identified as Nebraska's greatest measurable opportunity for hunting retention?
I'm sorry, say it again.
So you guys kind of you had showed that slide with you with your programs kind of mapped out, and there wasn't too many programs dealing with retention. Have you guys identified any programs that might be the most beneficial when it comes to the retention side of hunting and fishing?
Sure, and keep in mind that slide was simply mapping out some of the Wild Turkey Federation programs and some of the bigger programs. We've mapped out dozens and dozens of programs, in Nebraska and within our partnerships. And we are starting to see in our mapping some of the programs that do have the opportunity to focus on retention or even maybe reactivation efforts, as well as those that just focus on recruitment, and some that even focus only on awareness and don't bring us to that stage of recruitment. So yes, we've got several programs in our arsenal that focus across the board or focus specifically in recruitment and don't move any further forward. And I would challenge you to review those models, as that's okay, as long as you're meeting those objectives and able to do what you need to do with those participants within those programs. What we're using this modeling for now is to simply, and it's pretty simple and straightforward in my opinion, we're looking at programs that where they stop, and many of them do stop at the recruitment stage. Then we're looking at all the programs in our arsenal that start at that recruitment stage and move forward, and we're trying to come up then with ways on how we coordinate better, both within our partners and internally, to move those participants from one stage to the next. Imagine, if you will, in your own agencies, the power of your programming if you were coordinated to the level with your partners that they have the answer and you have the kids, and you're able to match the kids to the answer every time, and or the adults, or the college students, or the women or men, or whoever your target is, so that you're always able to keep those folks moving through some program in the right direction. Right now, many states, and ours included, have all these programs to some degree in place, but we're not connected or communicating well enough to make those connections amongst our participants. That's some of the immediate steps we're working on, and I think there's a lot of headroom to be made in making those connections and opening up more communication within our partners.
Lacey wants to know, how do you guys cross-promote with your NGO partners?
Well, and that's something that we're actually working on right now. We do a lot of cross promotion in some areas with some of our mentoring programs or outdoor skill type programs, and then very little in others. And that's what we're trying to change. And so one of the things that we'll be focusing on with Micaela's R3 coordinator position is to provide that one-shop stop, if you will, where moms, dads can look at the entire array of program offerings to understand that, okay, here's where this is all available, and get their kids, their families, themselves signed up for different program activities. Today, imagine, if you will, a parent who's sitting at home and wants their child to get some involvement or some experience in these programs. Where do they go? Do they go to the Archery Trade Association website? Do they go to the Nebraska Game Parks website? Do they go to the Turkey Federation website? Do they try to find it on PF website? So you can imagine the struggle and the difficulty we've created in trying to reach our audiences already. But if there was a website or there was a location that mom, dad, kids can go to and see the entire array of programs and understand where those programs fit and what those targets are for, we can make it a lot easier than we have made it in the past. And that's one of our immediate goals here with Micaela's position, is to simply make what we have out there for programming much more coordinated and much more tactical.
So we got a couple questions for Micaela here. Which program surprised you, Micaela, in producing results results in a short amount of time? So the best results in a short amount of time.
Well, I think we have to remember that I just came on board in August, so really I've just been using these past 4 months to learn about the different programs we have in the state of Nebraska. And I guess if we're going to talk about what surprised me, is the number of programs that are offered in the state of Nebraska. Between the NGOs and Game Parks, there's so many different things going on. And I think measuring measuring the results right now. I don't think I've gotten there yet because a lot of these programs are still, they started in August or around that time frame and they continue to move forward. So I don't know. I guess I don't feel like I can answer that yet, but I think that there are a lot of really great programs that we're going to be able to connect together to produce results. I think there's a lot of really great recruitment opportunities happening right now, and we're going to be able to put the pieces together to move them into a retention program as well.
Great. So
one of the things I will point out that Micaela's done, and it seems so simple, yet I think moving forward is going to have a much bigger impact, is we keep coming back to communication has been a struggle, and I talk to R3 stakeholders across the country, and they all say the same thing. Communication is always a struggle amongst both internally and with our partners. And so one of the things Micaela did here recently was with the R3 community website she put together a group function for the mentors here in Nebraska. Now, as that gets populated and we're able to push more information out and just start better communication among those who we might consider our mentors, then our coaches, and then our instructors, to develop more collaboration, more discussion, more talking amongst these groups that today maybe don't have a lot of communication amongst themselves and operating maybe less as a cohesive unit and more as individual units. Moving forward, this one effort alone is going to help our teams, our various volunteer partnerships and groups across the state maybe operate at a more cohesive level.
Yeah, and I'll chime in. I'm using the group function on the National R3 website in two ways right now. I've got two different groups going. The one is an R3 task force group where just the members of the R3 task force in the state of Nebraska can get on there, look at information from previous meetings, find notes from the subcommittees that are meeting. I think there's great value in having one place where everything goes, if that makes sense, and somewhere where you can always refer to and get the latest and greatest information. The other way that I'm using the group function is I created what's called the Nebraska Mentor Network, and this is a group of people in Nebraska. It doesn't matter what NGO they're with. They can join this website and just learn about the different mentoring opportunities in the state of Nebraska, learn about mentoring tips. I've also used this website for youth who are looking for mentors to try to find someone in their area who might be interested. And again, like Jeff said, communication, connecting people, connecting partners, and I really enjoy using the National R3 website. I think that it works really well, and it's just getting the groups populated, which takes time, but it's happening. So
you talk about communication, how it's such a big deal. Have you guys analyzed any ways on how to communicate to your Hunter Ed students about future opportunities down the road, future kind of almost holding their hand to the next thing, kind of getting them through that process? Have you guys identified anything that you guys can do in that respect?
Well, I would say I haven't worked, in my position at least, I haven't worked with Hunter Ed as much as I've been working with the NGOs to help their youth move on to the next thing. So, for example, if a youth is going to a mentored hunt through Pheasants Forever, providing them information about what's next. If I really enjoyed that mentored hunt, what's the next activity that I can do? Or another good example is the Jake's Take Aim trailer that we take all around the state of Nebraska to different activities. If, a youth or an adult even had a great time, trying the Jake's Take Aim trailer, what can I do next? Where can I go? What activities can I participate in? Right now, I would say I'm using most of that by creating a flyer that has different opportunities available. In the Jake's Take Aim trailer, I've created what's called an information card where youth and adults can write down their contact information as well as what they're interested in doing next. And then I've begun creating a database that I eventually want to send, like regular communication, a newsletter or a print piece or something along those lines. But I'm still working on populating that database and going from here. Jeff and Aaron have more experience with Hunter Ed.
Well, I guess the one thing I would add is right now, and we have for some time worked with our NGO partners as far as populating their events, whether they be a youth mentor hunt, a training hunt, whatever it is, with Hunter education graduates within their area. So we provide that list of graduates on a yearly basis. In-house, we do kind of the same thing with a lot of our programs, not just mentored hunts, but also some of our knowledge and skill-based programs, what we call our Learn to Hunt workshops, some of our summer camps where they're able to get in and do a little bit more shooting, learn a little bit more specific, species-specific hunting methods and then we build on it from there. I don't think we have it completely perfect yet because oftentimes you're obviously working with either a parent, which is not a bad thing, but sometimes that doesn't get all the way down to little Sally or little Joe as far as getting into exactly what they want to do. So you have to make it fit into that family model, if you will. But we do try to get those folks to the next level, and I think something will continually be tweaking.
And one thing that I want to point out is specifically talking about our hunter ed graduates. That you're talking in Nebraska. We're not one of the largest programs in the country, but we're between 8,000 to 10,000 graduates a year. And that group we do have information on, and we have been able to provide some tracking to those individuals in terms of marketing programs and connecting them to the next level. Working through our Calcemy system, we're able to track and have a database of every person who registers for a hunter education class across the state. And then working through our communications and our marketing team, who plays a huge role in some of this connectivity we're talking about, we're able to develop a lot of methods that we use to connect those students or participants to the next step. Those could be anything from our email blasts that go out targeting specifically our hunter education graduates, along with participants who are registered from various other programs. And we continue to collect that data and build that database. And it may start out small, but don't overlook the fact that over a period of a few years, you develop a database, tens of thousands. That's a pretty big database to continue marketing and moving to the next level. And we see that paying off in programs across the board. In fact, that's one of our biggest marketing databases for these efforts, is to keep those participants, those graduates in hunter education, moving forward along that pipeline.
Jennifer wants to know how you guys have those subcommittees meeting. How many people are on each subcommittee, and then how often are they meeting?
Yeah, so our task force has 14 members on it, and they got to choose which subcommittee they wanted to be on. So the subcommittees range anywhere from like 3 to 5 members. And as for meeting, that's still to be determined. We have our next task force meeting in February, so we wanted all the subcommittees to meet once between the task force, between now and the next task force meeting. In my ideal world, I'd like to see them meet every other month so that we can, keep our communication up, keep things rolling, things don't fall through the cracks or just get lost in everything that's going on in everybody's day-to-day work. But that would be...
And keep in mind, our goal isn't to make this a big planning phase. Our goal is to get as quickly and tactfully get these strategies outlined into actionable plans, actionable items, so that we can start with some programs, some activities, and not necessarily new programs by any means, but some framework type changes on the ground, so we can start making some better changes and foundational changes moving forward. One of the things that we did immediately to outline within all the available strategies and the 16 indirect threats within the national plan, as Micaela alluded to earlier, was to start prioritizing those as quickly as we could in-house, and then putting those into categories. First category was foundational. Those actionable items, those strategies that we have to move forward with today if we're going to put ourselves in position to do better, greater things moving forward in the future. And so we're tackling those foundational efforts right now, all the way through, those efforts then down the road, which we will get to at some point, that might just be more expansive efforts to expand some of the outreach or R3 efforts that we want to moving forward.
How has your guys' kind of recently got a website overhaul, and it looks great, and how has that played into changes in license sales or activity on your site or something? And then how close did you work with your communications team to develop that website?
Well, incredibly close. Our communications team led the charge in redeveloping our web page here at Game Parks, and to make it a little more user friendly, to make it a little more, to make it something that people are used to seeing in terms of the facelift that it received, and to make it more easier for people to move from point A to point B in finding the information they're needing to without clicking 8, 9, 10 times, which is some of the issues we had on the old site. And so what they did, and I certainly don't want to get into too much detail and sell their efforts short, but what they did was began working with divisions across the agency, sitting down, meeting with those divisions, describing what they've heard from the public, what they like and don't like about the web page, what information was critical to transfer over and what we could clean up, and then taking that back to a team that started working on those issues to start revamping the page. And so the communications and marketing team, they play a pretty large role they played the leading role in that effort, and a fairly large role in all the things we do. Moving back to one of the questions earlier, then the connection between like our Hunter Ed graduates and our next step programming. Yes, they play a huge role in that as well by helping us target those groups and find ways to reach those groups. And we do have a large number every year that database continues to build, and we are seeing that we're able to move those kids. We are seeing that we're able to, through our marketing efforts, populate those programs with Hunter Ed graduates or graduates from other programs by marketing to them with the next steps, and see some of those people showing up, participating in those next steps. We don't always get just those folks, and that's fine. That's not our goal, but it's our goal to make sure that if you have the desire and want to take that next step, if we've motivated you in some way at a previous step to move forward, we want to make darn sure we're giving you that opportunity or multiple opportunities moving forward to stay involved and to stay moving forward on that recruitment pathway.
Mm-hmm. All right, we'll do one last question here from Doug. He wants to know, so you get all those emails from, Calcomy's, graduate programs and whatnot. How are you seeing that pay off? Are you seeing them come back through on your other programs after their Hunter Ed course online?
Yeah, exactly. That's what I was just alluding to. But yes, we're marketing heavily to that group, the Hunter Education group. We found some various methods that have worked well for that group, particularly with some of our social media methods and our email blasts to reach those Hunter Ed graduates and to move them to the next steps. And we're seeing that happen in many of these programs, whether it be a summer camp type program after Hunter Education. Now that they've learned about some of these skills, they've got some very basic hands-on knowledge that the Hunter Education program does an incredible job of providing. And then we move them to that next stage where now they spend an entire 3 or 4 days with us doing some hands-on, on-the-ground activities. And same group that's also going to get a message to or an outreach effort from, say, Pheasants Forever to be a part of a mentored hunt. And we see those, absolutely. The majority of those kids in those programs, and all of those kids in some of those programs are made up of Hunter Ed graduates that we market to or provide information on to our partners so they can market to them for their next step programs.
Great. Thanks, guys. This has been really great. Everybody who listened today, thanks for taking time out of your busy schedule to hear what they had to say. Some of the next steps on implementing the national plan. Aaron, Jeff, Micaela, you did a great job. Thank you very much. We're going to send out a survey. I think Sam posted it to the chat there. We'll also email it out along with the PowerPoint that they gave today. We're also going to be posting the whole recording in a video onto the R3 site. So, you can go back and rewatch it, or, so others can watch it as well. Yeah, be looking for that email. We're going to do another webinar probably after the holidays in January. So be looking for that. Other than that, guys, thank you very much. And everybody, have a great holiday.
Thank you all.